my name is Zoe Bay, and I'm an MSW intern at Syntero. I work in the older adults program, and today we are going to be talking about the holidays and how they might look different amidst the pandemic that we are in. So, the next couple of months bring a lot of holidays with them, and a lot of the way we celebrate in these holidays are going to look very different than usual. So, many of our traditions may have to be altered to fit guidelines and to keep us safe, and many of our traditions may be completely unable to even happen, depending on what they are. So, during this time, we are probably grieving this loss and alteration of our traditions, and we are probably grieving not being able to see our family in the way that we normally do, or feeling less connected and a lot more isolated than we typically feel. One thing I really want to stress is that the way you feel about the holidays this year is valid. Whether you feel sad, disappointed, worried, maybe even relieved, because you don't have to go through the whole hustle and bustle that the holidays usually brings, all of those feelings are valid. There's no one way that you are supposed to feel. This is a very difficult year that brings a lot of new challenges and a lot of new difficulties with it that affect everybody in a different way. So the way you feel is extremely valid and understandable. I know it is hard to think of this as a temporary time because we have been in it for so long at this point, but it is temporary even if it's hard to see right now. So there are some tips I have about taking care of your mental health and still having a meaningful holiday this year. So my first tip is to confront your emotions as they come in. If we just push our emotions down and don't deal with them and don't confront them, it's going to build up there and it will bubble out eventually. It is much better to confront your emotions as you're feeling them and to allow yourself to feel those emotions fully. Some people confront their emotions through journaling, through meditation. Some people talk to families and loved ones and just rant it out. Some people may need to seek out a therapist or attend support groups or make other moves to deal with the emotions that they're feeling. However, it is that works for you, make sure that you are working to confront your emotions during this time. The second tip is to make a plan. So even if you're spending the holidays alone, decide I'm going to have this for dinner and I'm going to listen to this music or I'm going to watch this movie that I like. Like, make a plan so that you actually have some small way of celebrating, some small way of making it a meaningful time for yourself instead of just sitting there and realizing you don't know what to do. Another thing is to be flexible and understand that any plans you do make, if you make plans with other people at all, could be altered with the changing climate that we're in right now. So it's important to not get really set and fixed on one plan and to be flexible. My last tip is to appreciate the small joys. So this could be a cup of coffee in the morning, if you really like snow and it's a pretty snowy day outside, if you get to have a phone conversation with someone in your family that you don't usually get to talk to. These are all small joys, but they can be very meaningful and very important, especially during a time like the one we are in. Now, the holidays could definitely lead to some hard conversation with friends and family if there are disagreements about how people want to celebrate. So, just to review really quickly, the CDC holiday guidelines, since especially cases in the US are rising currently, the CDC is urging people to continue to wear a mask when in public, to social distance, to stay home and get tested if you have symptoms or believe you have come into contact with COVID-19, and small gatherings less than 10 people are recommended. The CDC is also recommending that individuals only meet with their own households and no household mixing at this time. So, with that being said, do what you are most comfortable with and what protects you and your loved ones the best. So, if your loved ones decide that they're having a group of people and it's less than 10 and they're going to wear masks, but you're still not comfortable with that, you have every right to set that boundary and to say, that's not okay with me, that's not comfortable with me, I'm going to stay home this year because I need to protect myself, excuse me. So if you and your loved ones disagree, I think it's important to have a conversation with them to explain your side and to recognize that you are all coming from different experiences and may have different opinions, but each person has a right to do what will keep them safe and healthy. So that goes along with setting boundaries and expectations. Like I said, you have every right to set the boundaries that are best for you, even if others disagree. It is very difficult when we have disagreements with family, and very frustrating when the disagreement is something related to a pandemic that is completely out of our control. But just be mindful of your own boundaries and your own expectations and your expectations for others. Every person is trying to look out for themselves and to look out for their own health and happiness, and that looks different for each person. So it is okay if you disagree, but just because you disagree does not mean you have to concede and do something that you are not comfortable with. One thing I do want to emphasize is that while many things are canceled this year, connection does not have to be canceled. We can still connect with others. We can still call people. We can still social distance outside if it's going to be cold, but some people have fire pits. You can do that. You can FaceTime people. There are many other ways of connecting with people, even if we cannot be in person. So do not forget that. So during this time, it's very important to be aware of your emotional and physical health, especially during the holidays. So being aware of your emotions, like we said before, confronting those emotions and dealing with them, and noticing any withdrawals into isolation. When we are going through a difficult time, many people tend to withdraw inside themselves and not reach out for help when that is the perfect time that they should be reaching out for help. So I just encourage anyone who is feeling isolated or having a rough time to reach out to your loved ones, reach out to a professional. People want to help you, people want to speak to you, and there will be people who will be there for you if they know that you need them. You need to allow yourself to experience the grief and loss that you're feeling. Taking care of your body and your overall wellness will be very important. So doing self-care, taking care of yourself, enjoying nutritious food, limiting alcohol intake, getting good night's sleep every night. These things, maybe taking part in some light exercise, these things are all very important. You need to keep your physical body healthy to also keep the other parts of you healthy. Some ways to look out for your emotional health would be to journal to yourself or to do meditation or practice mindfulness as a form of reflection. Reading books, maybe that you've been wanting to read for a while, or watching movies that you really like. Reading can be very calming to people who are experiencing high anxiety. Be gentle with yourself and pay attention to how you are talking to yourself. Are you being kind to yourself, or are you being another stressor on yourself? Another thing is to be mindful of your obligations and to try not to overbook yourself. Even though we're not in person, you can still overbook your Zoom calls or anything. You can still overbook yourself. So just be mindful of where you're putting your energy. Guided meditation and prayers, very helpful to many folks. Walking and being outside, if you have a nice area to walk in and you feel comfortable doing so. Getting some sunlight every day when there is sunlight is a very good practice to work in. Feelings of isolation and loneliness typically rise from October and January in a normal year, and in this year, I am sure that trend will be emphasized. So just recognizing that and making sure to reach out when you need it, and maybe even reach out to loved ones you haven't heard from in a while, because they might be withdrawing into themselves and they need someone like you to reach out to them. Another thing that is good is to take a break from electronics and screens, which is difficult to do when we are isolated at home and talking to everyone through Zoom and watching movies all the time. But taking maybe a half an hour before you go to bed, putting away all the electronics and all the screens, because looking at the screen in the blue light can keep you up and affect your sleep quality. So these are all good things to take into consideration. One small thing that I like to do, you can see with my lights and my plant, is to be festive at home. So decorating, reading holiday books, watching holiday movies, listening to festive music, making cookies, driving around and looking at lights. These are all things that I am doing to still make the holiday a meaningful time and still feel like I am celebrating even in small ways. Another thing that I have been enjoying is to do something meaningful for my loved ones or for a stranger, because this is especially a time when a lot of people need help. So even just texting my cousin that I don't talk to a whole lot, hey, how are you? How's it going? I made blankets for a charity that donates blankets to people suffering from homelessness, and that small, socially distanced action is an action that will still help someone in need, and that we could always use more people helping people in need. So that is everything I had to talk about today. So I think it is important to take home that we need to take care of ourselves. We need to look out for our loved ones. We need to appreciate the small joys in our life. And we need to take care of our emotional and physical health in a variety of ways. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays.